Welcome to this edition of Labor Vision. I'm Bob Delaney, Executive Director of the Institute for Labor Studies and Research. Labor Vision, a production of the Institute, focuses on topics of importance to working Rhode Island families. We hope you enjoy this evening's edition.
Welcome to Labor Vision. My name is Hammond, and I am the Workforce Labor Liaison at the Institute for Labor Studies and Research. Joined with me tonight is Dr. Okurowski of the Occupational and Environmental Health Center of Rhode Island. Thank you for joining us, Doctor.
Nice to be here.
Now, in the past, we really only saw these defibrillators on TV when we were watching, say, a hospital scene or in the event of an accident. And this has changed greatly since then, many years ago. How has this changed?
It really began back in the 1990s, I'd say. State lawmakers, federal lawmakers started to see the potential for a significant impact on saving lives by getting portable automated external defibrillators out into the general public. And this really moved the portable devices away from the hospitals out into the public sector. With the advent of new technology and policy changes, we started to see the devices moving out not only into towns, cities, but also organizations, companies. A landmark act came in 2000 with the Federal Cardiac Arrest Survival Act, which expanded federal dollars commitment to getting portable units out into the community. Initially, that was met with some skepticism. There were questions about liability from lay people performing life-saving procedures. But since then, all 50 states have passed what's called Good Samaritan laws to protect individuals who in good faith are trying to help. And that really has also expanded the availability of these devices. You combine that now with better devices, better batteries, and better technology, and we've really seen in the last 5 to 10 years a significant expansion of these devices in schools, communities, and in the private sector, businesses.
I recall seeing them in high school, when I was in high school
Yeah,
in 2013.
Yes, they're seen now in most colleges, universities, and the big decision now is for many companies that are looking to adopt this new technology. And there's some initiatives sponsored by OSHA and NIOSH that really support their use in the private sector workplace.
Now, over time, these devices have changed greatly. I imagine they've gotten smaller, more reliable. Can you go into a little bit more detail about those?
Yeah, the initial devices, there was some concerns about reliability, misfiring, errors, but the units really have gotten significantly improved, in large part due to some more federal oversight, FDA oversight. But it's important to remember these are real medical devices that require significant oversight in a program when a company or a municipality wants to bring them into their institution. That being said, both the American Heart Association and a variety of other organizations, American Red Cross, OSHA, actively support implementing AED programs in the workplace to increase survival rates from sudden cardiac death. And what that means is really all workplaces are potential candidates for programs. But when putting in these devices, it's not something that should be done in a vacuum. It really needs to be done with an organized program and significant dialogue between the workforce, management, labor, and also a variety of state agencies, emergency medical services, and we can talk more about that in detail.
Right. Now, what are the important things to consider upon implementation of one of these programs?
That's a good question. It's something that needs some time, and OSHA has actually made some recommendations on this for private sector and municipalities. key things to consider when you're developing a program is you really need to have some kind of physician oversight, and that can be done through individual physicians, but there's also corporations that provide that oversight. Also, you need to make sure any program is compliant with state, local, and federal regulation. Programs also require some coordination with local emergency medical services, and when you develop a program, you really have to have some component of a quality assurance component to your program, as well as establishing health and safety checks and periodic reviews of a program. So it's not a one-time deal when you create such a program.
Okay. You mentioned previously that workplaces would be a great candidate for having an AED in their facility. What are the necessary steps that a workplace would have to take or should take if implementing an AED program?
So if someone in the workplace is interested in starting a program, the first thing to consider, as we sort of alluded to previously, was the concept of medical oversight. Some states, municipalities require a formal prescription from a physician to start a program. You also want to reach out to local emergency medical services. Often fire departments in local municipalities have resources for individuals or companies, municipalities that want to expand AED programs. You also have to make the decision on choosing an AED. There's multiple manufacturers of these devices. Different manufacturers have different pros and cons and can provide different levels of support. That gets into a key component of any program, is that you really need to have whoever's providing you with the AED also provide you with technical support. These are typically battery driven, so they do need follow-up, regular maintenance. You also need to develop a written program and establish routine maintenance, getting supplies, things like that. There's also issues related to AED placement within your organization. The ideal goal is to have any AED within 3 to 5 minute location to get to any emergency location where something happens. So these do require some planning within the building structure of where they're going to be placed, whether that's in a school or a workplace. The other key thing is you really have to have a training plan or a training program for your employees, workers, and a variety of different organizations have those programs. American Heart and American Red Cross are the big guys that really provide these kind of services. You also have an issue of getting your employees aware of the program and getting buy-in, because without buy-in and employees feeling supported, they won't be used. And lastly, we talked about this further before, it's an iterative process. You have to constantly reevaluate your program, see what's working, test, check equipment, but also check in with your employees. But it's a great opportunity when you put one of these programs in to expand out your health and safety programs within your own company. Many individuals, in conjunction with an AED program, also, it's part of the safety. You get trained in basic life support, first aid, etc. So it can be a complex process, but there's many corporations, companies that have done this, so it's pretty well established how to start out. But those are some of the big things to consider when you're going to implement such a program.
Now, what's the effectiveness of these AEDs?
That's a good question. Sudden cardiac arrest survival rates are significantly, dramatically improved in the workplace or any scenario when a defibrillator, an AED, is made available. And OSHA tracks those statistics, and the scope of this discussion really is outside of the specifics. But it's clear that AEDs do save lives and they do increase survival rates dramatically. But it does require a concentrated effort in the workplace from multiple groups. That would include human resources, labor, management, risk, health, and safety. And when those groups work together and put in an effective AED program, we do see some pretty dramatic improvements in survival rates.
What's the scope of the issue? And do you have any details of survival rates that you can go into for us?
Yeah, when you consider that sudden cardiac deaths, estimates on sudden cardiac death range from 250,000 to up to 400,000 deaths per year in the United States. And the fact that almost 95% of those die prior to reaching the hospital, the magnitude really becomes clear because survival rates significantly increase when an AED or any defibrillator is used in the first 5 to 7 minutes of a sudden cardiac death. To specifically tell you the magnitude, estimates are survival rates increase by up to 60% with the use of a defibrillator. And for every minute that somebody goes untreated without a defibrillator who needs one, their chance of survival drops by 10%. So it's a pretty dramatic increase in impact with a defibrillator.
Now, if a workplace implements one of these devices and they've gone through the necessary training, they have someone there who is trained and able to use one of these devices, in the event that it needs to be used, a worker goes down, can you just lay out exactly what would happen, what would have to be done, how the device works?
Well, to just give going into the absolute specifics is probably, again, beyond the scope of this discussion, but how it would typically work is, let's say hypothetically a worker went down in a sudden cardiac arrest, and let's say 2 workers who had been through the program came upon that worker. What would happen is they'd be, of course, trained in AED use and CPR, and they would, assess the individual, find out that there's no heart rate, no breathing. One would most likely be required to activate the emergency medical response code within the system, and one worker would start CPR, which would include things like chest compressions and breathing, while another worker went and actually got the AED and brought it on site to assist this individual. The purpose of chest compressions and breathing while they're getting the AED is to continue blood to the brain and other vital organs. But once the AED is brought to the scene, it becomes a fairly automated process. The AEDs now are smart devices. They actually walk an individual through the process. Pads are placed. The device actually monitors the individual's rhythm, assesses what's needed, gives a shock if necessary, and actually gives the rescuer prompts on what to do, specifically shock, continue CPR, things like that. This is all done in conjunction with while emergency medical services, formal EMS, paramedics, EMTs arrive at the scene to take over for those individuals that were the initial first responders.
Right. In your opinion, how do the costs of this type of device outweigh the benefits?
I think for a while there was some questions and people were sort of risk averse to putting these programs in, but I think now there's no question that absolutely AEDs outweigh the risks and should be considered in almost all workplaces. The simple fact is AEDs save lives, and they should really be considered by almost every workplace, whether that's at a municipal, state, federal, or private level. The benefits clearly outweigh the risks at this point.
I mean, you laid out the statistics for us. It's so clear.
It can be a no-brainer, and we can also briefly talk cost. I mean, the costs have come down dramatically to put these programs in place. We're even seeing personal devices being developed for the individual user.
Wow.
So it's an area where, it's time to see them more in the workplace.
Wow. Well, we're just about out of time. I want to thank you so much again for being here with us, Doctor. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. You're watching Labor Vision. Have a great night.
My name is Raul Figueroa, and I'm the cooperative coordinator here at Fuerza Laboral. I am so happy to be here today. This is the first day celebrating workers' cooperatives in the state of Rhode Island. This day is going to be remembered from years to come. And I'm happy to be in the same room with some of the most loving and caring and hardworking people here in Rhode Island. I feel blessed, and I feel very happy to be part of this project. When we first started working on this project about 6 years ago, we didn't know where we were going to be right now. And I can attest that the amazing progress that we have made so far has been incredible. I had the opportunity to work with some of the most talented and dedicated people, just like the executive director, Heini Maldonado, who is right there, with Andres Incapié, who's the new organizer, and also a lot of other people who are part of the Power Network. Manuel Batley is here with us. I just saw Jillian Finkel from the city of Central Falls. We work together and we form what is called the Power Network. Together we educate and we help develop workers' cooperatives.
Buenos dias, buenas tardes, good afternoon, everybody. It is such a pleasure for me to be here today. Not only do I love and adore Judy Patron, let's just give her a big round of applause. But I am equally passionate and in love with Heini Maldonado and Raul. Raul, what's your last name? Figueroa. Figueroa. And let's give Fuerza Laboral a round of applause. I want to thank these fine individuals, and of course all of you who are also here today. I see George Nee, a big friend of workers, and I was so proud to be able to sponsor one of the workers' cooperative bills a couple of years ago, because in my opinion, it's everything that is good about workers. These workers' cooperatives encourage workers to become owners of businesses. When workers are owners of businesses, they don't leave when the state passes a bad tax law or something that might adversely affect them. These are worker owners that live in our communities. They live among us. And because they own their own business, they of course are the best workers that you can ever get. So I am so happy to be part of this day celebrating the anniversary of these cooperatives, and very happy to know that we have a successful cleaning cooperative right here. I have to figure out information about how I can use you guys in my own life and for businesses that I know and work with. And you know, as a state policymaker, these are the kinds of initiatives that are good for people, they're good for our communities, and they're good for our economy.
Our next speaker will be Eric Beecher. Eric is a founder of Soul Power.
All right. Thanks for having me here today. So I just wanted to start out and say that for those who are new to worker cooperatives, what that really means is a business that is owned by its employees and run for the benefit of its employees. And so in terms of jobs that are going to provide a living wage, that are going to empower workers, in my opinion, the best way to do that is a worker cooperative. So thanks to everyone who's supporting those in this room, and if you're new, then we'd love to have you on board. And so my name is Eric Beecher. I'm the president of Soul Power. It's a solar installation worker cooperative. Over the past 6 years, we've installed solar, more than 400 projects in Rhode Island. We're up to 7 owners in the business now, and 3 more employees who are on the track to becoming owners. And so we're putting a lot of great clean energy onto the grid, but at the same time also providing really quality green collar jobs, and really able to pay a great wage to our electricians who to be up there on the roof, to people who are out there working all year round outdoor jobs and really providing great steady employment for everyone. We've never had to lay anyone off due to changes in business, changes in the environment, which is really a rarity in the construction industry. I think that just goes to show that we're really dedicated to our employees, and the business is really run for the people who are working there. Thank you.
Okay, Rachel Flom. Rachel is the executive director of the Economy Progress Institute. The Institute is a nonpartisan research and policy organization that advocates the policies that improve economic security and opportunity for Rhode Islanders.
Well, thank you, Judy, for having me here today, and to Raul and Heine for inviting me. As she said, my name is Rachel Flum. I'm the Executive Director of the Economic Progress Institute here in Rhode Island, and our mission is really to improve the economic security for all Rhode Islanders. So, of course, when Raul asked me to come speak today, I was delighted to do so. As a research organization, we're often the folks in the room giving dire statistics about how terrible things are, especially for workers of color here in our state. So I'm pleased to be here to support a success and something that we think will make real change towards improving those disparities that we far too often are talking about. We do know from our research that years of stagnant wages have led to Rhode Island being one of the worst income inequality states in the country. That means that our businesses in the state are doing very well, our large businesses, but our local Rhode Islanders are not faring as well. Workers' cooperatives are a great way to help reverse that trend, because we know that small, locally, democratically owned cooperatives are able to build assets, which means wealth, for the workers themselves. These also can have significant impacts for workers of color, and not just the workers themselves and their families, but also the communities that they are organized in. In Rhode Island, most of our workers of color are in urban centers, and the research on cooperatives shows that when cooperatives exist in urban areas, they're able to bring up the whole community with them, because they provide goods and services to the community, they provide the good jobs that Eric was talking about, and so they uplift the entire community. So with that, I'm just very pleased to be here to support and applaud the General Assembly and Senator Nesselbush for passing this legislation 2 years ago, and we look forward to seeing its continued success.
Okay, and the last speaker will be Ellie Wyatt. Is a retired teacher with a master in special education from Northeastern University. Ellie taught special ed in Rhode Island public scholar for 35 years, and now she is part of the Center for Employment Ownership, an organization focused in the education and development of workers' cooperative. Thank you, Ellie.
Thank you, everybody, for coming, and good afternoon. So, December 2008, Republic Windows and Doors declares bankruptcy and closes its doors. Bank of America informed the workers that they were not going to get the severance pay that was due them under the WARN Act, but the workers refused to leave the factory, and the workers were given their severance pay. Serious Energy came in, bought Republic Windows and Doors, and they too went bankrupt. At that point, the workers went to their union and decided they wanted to create a co-op. They knew how to make windows. What they needed was, they needed capital, and they needed to learn how to run a business. Through their union, they were able to learn how to run a business, and they were able to raise capital. It was not without a struggle, and at times this had seemed like it was never going to happen. All along, though, they believed in what they were doing. They did develop their co-op. It's now called New Era Windows, and it operates outside of Chicago. It is a successful business. They have been in operation successfully manufacturing windows and creating a new business model that is focused on producing a quality product and replacing a hierarchically run business with a democratically run enterprise. January 2009, Colibri here in Rhode Island, a Rhode Island manufacturing company that had been in operation since 1928, closed their doors with no notice to 300 workers. The workers sued to receive their severance pay and back pay, which would be their right under the WARN Act. But Colibri was history, And the workers, some who had worked 20 years and more, were left without jobs during the height of the 2008 meltdown. Today, in Rhode Island, in the Rhode Island General Assembly, there is a Local Ownership Opportunity Act that has been introduced and passed in the House, and it is waiting to be heard in the Senate. The Local Ownership Opportunity Act would give workers ample notice when a business is closing and the information to workers and employers how the enterprise could be sold to the employees should both agree that this is a desired outcome. So I hope everybody will remember the Local Ownership Opportunity Act. Tell your senators you want to see it passed, and hope you enjoy the exhibits outside. Thank you.
The mayor of Central Falls, Mayor James Diossa, who is so gladly came here today, and he's going to say a few words as well.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to address all of you. I got to give a special shout out to my buddy George Nee, who's up front, who keeps me sharp on my labor issues. And this is no surprise that Central Falls, a community that's so densely populated, a community that works really hard, that has a culture of really being involved in everything that they do and making the best out of every opportunity. And when this opportunity to do a cooperative function in our city came about because of these two great people in our city, Jaime Maldonado as the executive director of Fuerza Laboral, there was no way I could say no to this project, and to be able to empower your own community to take on businesses and expand the wealth amongst our residents and make them empowered. I thought that this was the best thing that could happen, and I'm proud to say that Central Falls was a partner. We allowed them to use office space, and of course we have a great partner in Navigant Credit Union and so many others who've made this not only a case of success, but one that should be adopted by many communities around Rhode Island, and continue this program, because I think that you'll see how creative people can be if given the opportunity, and how successful people can be if given the opportunity. So I want to thank you so much for letting me be here. Thank you for being in Central Falls, and I'm excited to be able to celebrate and continue this project with all of you. Thank you.
All right, so before we all leave, I want to recognize the following people. I want to recognize Representative Maura Walsh. Thank you for being here. George Nee, thank you for taking time out of your day to be here. Justin Kelly, thank you so much to each of the speakers. Rachel Flan, Eric Beecher, obviously Senator Nesselbush, thank you for being here. Representative Jello. And everybody who took time out of the day to be here with us today. It's there's no words to describe how much we appreciate this.
Thank you for joining us for this edition of Labor Vision. We appreciate your input and encourage your comments. Labor Vision can be seen on this channel 3 times each week: Tuesday at 7 p.m., Thursday at 8 p.m., and Saturday at 5 p.m.